In this video, I want to share with you my story of how I spent 4 years trapped inside a mental hospital with my life going in a very dark direction, and yet how I managed to turn it all around. I'll also be sharing with you the 3 key lessons that I learned that helped me to make a change, with the hopes that if someone is feeling stuck in their lives or not sure where to start, I hope this can offer some inspiration. And so what happened to me? Well, I'm going to try and round my very long story up in less than 5 minutes. But when I was 15 years old, I was suffering with depression and anxiety, and so I tried to end my life, and I ended up being pulled out of school and admitted to my first ever psychiatric hospital in London. And I ended up staying in this first hospital for 2 years in total. Now you're probably wondering, why did this even happen? Why was I even depressed? And truthfully, there wasn't a one-time event or one-time trauma that happened in my life, but instead there was many different complicated factors that played a part, and I'd be happy to go into them in another video, but for the purpose of this video, I want to stay on track with this story. And so it came to the end of 2 years staying in this first hospital, and then they were like, damn, Heather, you've been here too long, we can't do anything else to help you. And so they sent me to a specialist hospital in Manchester. And for those who don't know, Manchester is like 4 hours away from London, so I had to move away from like my parents and friends. And the second hospital I went to, oh my god, it was like a prison. In fact, it was actually more secure than most prisons. Your bathroom and your bedroom was always locked. You were literally not allowed to have anything. If you wanted a pen to just write something, someone would have to watch you use it. You literally had to ask someone to get a drink of water and they brought it to you because you were not allowed to get it. Oh, this place is crazy. Like, you had no control over anything in your life, and unfortunately the staff were so emotionally abusive and they treated us so badly, and it was such a toxic place. I can actually probably count on my hands the amount of times that I went outside in the whole 2 years of being there. Like, it was actually normal to not see the sky or even get fresh air for like weeks on end. And so yeah, I ended up staying in this second hospital for 2 years as well, and this was the worst 2 years of my entire life. I don't even know how I got through it. Honestly, I don't know how I got through it. That was like hell. Like I feel like I've seen hell. I've been in hell. That was hell. And so in total, I was in hospital for 4 years with no breaks in between. But eventually, I ended up getting discharged when I was 19 years old into like this community supported housing, which is basically where you live in this house with support and staff live there 24/7. And so I also lived here with other teenagers who had been discharged from other hospitals. And basically this place helps you to build back up your life again in the community. So like they help you find a job or go back into education. Basically they try and help you to become a normal human being again and go back into society. And so by the time I came out of hospital after 4 years, I really was a shell of a person. I didn't get any qualifications as I had left school when I was 15. I had no hobbies or interests or had nothing about me as we were never allowed to do anything. And I had extreme social anxiety, which I've always faced social anxiety since being a young kid, but now it was even worse. And so I really was at rock bottom. I also didn't have many friends anymore because after 4 years of being in hospital, they just faded away on the outside. And I would see people my age studying, working, hanging out with friends, and I always felt like I had nothing going for me. For honestly so many years, I felt like such an outcast to everybody. But in a weird way, I also knew that I was kind of lucky because I am now living in this supported house with an opportunity in front of me to turn my life around that not everybody gets. The reality was, I knew that many people out there would end up dead because they would never receive the support they needed from the systems. And others who would get discharged from hospital will spend their lives stuck in the system, going in and out, because it's very hard to break free from this lifestyle. And so I knew I only really had 2 choices. I could either work so hard to turn my life around and take action on everything that I can control, or I could spend my life feeling depressed about my situation and probably just going in and out of hospital, getting stuck in the system forever. Sadly, around me, most people accepted that mental illness was for life, but I knew for me that wasn't going to be an option. And so here is where I want to share with you the 3 key lessons I learned on how I turned my life around. After years of hard work, I have now become the healthiest and happiest version of myself. And honestly, when I speak about my past and share this story, it's as if I'm referring to a completely different person. I really can't relate to that version of me anymore. Over the last few years, I have done things that I never thought was possible. I totally cured my social anxiety. It's not something that ever bothers me anymore or crosses my mind. I taught myself skills and studied so I could get a job. I built up good, consistent habits in my life so that I could look after myself better. And in the last year, I sold all of my belongings and moved country to try and focus on building up my own business. And I'm not telling you this to say, oh, look at me. I'm telling you this to show you what's possible. I had doctors tell me that I would have to live with mental illness for the rest of my life, and that my only hope would be that I would have to learn to manage them. And yet here I am years later with no illnesses, totally happy, totally healthy, and at peace, because I didn't believe what they said and I knew that I could change. But I am not where I am today because of luck or hoping that things would get better. I am where I am today because I intentionally said to myself, I am not going to live like that anymore. I don't care what experiences I have had, I am going to change. And so this brings me into the first lesson. Lesson number 1, learn from others. I honestly wouldn't have overcome so many of my difficulties if I didn't read books. Hands down, I learned more from psychology and self-improvement books than I ever did from the education system, from school, from therapy, from doctors. We're currently living in one of the most pivotal moments in human history where easy access to information or knowledge we need is more abundant than ever. Yet so many people don't take the time to seek it out. Like literally any problem that you have, someone is sharing the solution for it. And so you just have to find a person who has walked down the path that you want to go down, and then you learn from them. There is a saying that goes, success leaves clues, and that's because it does. There are so many people who have succeeded in overcoming difficulties in their lives, whether it's money issues, health issues, social skills, facing big life adversities, relationship issues, low self-esteem, literally any type of problem, and they literally share all of their wisdom with you, and so you just learn from them and then apply it to your own life. To give you a personal example, I totally cured my social anxiety because of what I read in books. I honestly used to hate speaking to people. Like, I didn't like ordering my food from the waiter or being in a shop and needing to know where something is. I would rather leave than ask the staff member. And so then imagine how bad my social anxiety became after 4 years of being locked inside. It was like at an all-time low. But there came a point where I was like, I can't live like this anymore. I can't stay in my bedroom scared to go outside, just keep scrolling on my phone, looking at other people's lives, because that's not a life to live. And so I started to read books on fear, books on emotions, books on understanding my mind, books on how to overcome social anxiety, and I started to implement what I had learned, and now years later I have no social anxiety anymore. And it's the same with every single problem I've had. I just find other people who have walked the path that I want to go down, and then I learn from them. Now obviously it's not as simple as it sounds. The knowledge is the easy part, the work is the hard part. Trust me, I had to face a lot of fear and go through many hard times, but I always saw how the alternative would have been much worse, to continue to live a life in misery. And so I had to make a choice. Do I face fear now so that I can be happy and well in the future? Or do I choose to avoid fear now, and in the future my life will continue to stay the same? And so you have to take the time to educate yourself on your problem, because the answer isn't going to just appear on your doorstep. Now, of course, one of the problems we might face is that not all advice is good advice, but you just have to start somewhere, and eventually you'll use your intuition to sift out what's crap and what's good. Take what works, leave the rest, and move on to the next. I read many things that were a waste of time or rubbish, but then I just moved on to the next. Eventually, at some point, you're going to find the solution if you keep searching, but you have to want it. You have to want to change. And so the first step to creating any change is knowledge, because if you're feeling stuck and you're not sure what to do, then you need to find the tools and guidance to get to where you want to go. Podcasts, books, videos, there's so much information out there. You need to put in the work to find it. Now, the second key lesson is taking responsibility. And this point follows on nicely from the last point, because the first step to change is knowledge, but then the second step to change is taking action. Honestly, for so many years, I stayed stuck, wishing that my life would change, but it never did because I didn't take different action. And I think this was for two main reasons. Number one, I believed that somebody else could save me. I thought someone else could make it better, and surely at some point, if I keep just waiting around, something has to change. I can't do anything about my situation because of X, Y, and Z, and there's nothing that I can do. And that couldn't have been further from the truth. I eventually had to learn that it was only ever going to be me who could make a change. No one is going to come and change your situation. No one can do the work for you. And the second reason that I stayed stuck for so long and that I didn't take action on anything is because truthfully I felt sorry for myself. And it felt like I was the only one with these issues and no one else gets it and life is unfair. And all that this negative mentality did was just keep me stuck in the same place. Eventually, a truth that I had to learn, and quite a hard to swallow pill, was that life is unfair. There are some people who are born into wealthy countries and there are other people who are born into poverty. There are some people who go through horrific traumas and there are other people who live quite a nice life. There are some people who never have to work and there are other people who have to do 3 jobs just to survive. And it's unfair. Why should that one person have to suffer more than another when they didn't do anything wrong and they didn't choose this life and they didn't choose those experiences and it's not their fault? However, there's only really 2 choices that you can make about your situation. You can feel upset and angry about your situation, and by all means, you're allowed to feel those emotions. Life can be so unfair and it's so hard, and you aren't to blame for certain things that happened or circumstances, and so you deserve to be angry and sad and all those things. But eventually there comes a point where staying stuck in that mindset and those emotions do not help you, because the reality is continuing to feel bad about your situation will not change your situation. You are now the only person who can change your situation. And in the end, I had to learn how to use all of that sadness I felt, all of that anger and that pain, and use it as fuel to help me to make a change. Instead of feeling sorry for myself, I started asking myself, what can I do about my situation? And I used all of that negativity I felt as inspiration to keep moving forward. Honestly, I knew deep inside of me that despite how awful things were, or despite how far behind I was in life, or despite the disadvantages I'd faced, I knew that I was going to become somebody different because I was not going to stop until I achieved that. I was so lonely, so sad, so angry, and so I was like, life is not worth living if it's going to be like this. And so my only option is to change. I can't continue to be controlled by my mind anymore. I can't keep suffering like this. And I used those negative emotions as fuel to help me take action. And I honestly believe this point I'm making on taking responsibility is one of the biggest reasons people continue to stay stuck, because people fail to recognize that they're making a choice. Like when I came out of hospital, it would have been so easy for me to just stay the same and justify it to myself because of the experiences I have gone through, because of what's happened to me, justify it to everyone else. I could have said, I'm more unfortunate than others, I have a mental illness, and so there's nothing I can do to change my situation. But actually the truth is, there is usually always something we can do in our control to improve our situation, but we don't want to do it because it's hard work. It's much easier to justify to yourself why you can't make a change because of your circumstances than it is to actually do the hard work necessary to change your situation. It's much easier to look outward and blame circumstances, blame the government, blame others, blame people on the internet, than it is to actually look inward and think to yourself, what can I do to change my situation? There are often many things in our control that we can do, but we don't want to do it because it's hard. I post YouTube shorts sometimes of like a day in the life of disciplined habits where I just show what I'm doing in a day, and like the good habits that I do, like meditating, eating well, running, cold dipping, just with the hopes of inspiring one person to look after themselves a bit more. And I always get comments from spiteful people that say things like, look at your lifestyle, you're so entitled, I work 6 days a week and life is so easy for you. Or they say something like, most of my time is spent working, I don't have the time to do these habits, you're so spoiled. Basically, there's always a bunch of people hating on me, complaining about how hard their life is because they have to work all day. And I always want to comment, hey, I was in a mental hospital for 4 years, but at least I did something to change my situation instead of complaining about it or trying to drag others down. People love to point their fingers at everybody else and project all of their negativity onto them, because then it means that they don't have to look at themselves and they don't have to do the hard work necessary to change their situation. It's so much easier to just be angry at other people than it is to actually take responsibility for your own choices. Because taking responsibility would mean looking at yourself in the mirror and realizing that you can do better. And when people leave those type of comments, I always think to myself, in the amount of time that it took them to write out that comment and post it, they actually probably could have done something to improve their situation. They could spend their free time learning a new skill on YouTube in order to get a new job. They could look online for different opportunities in order to change their situation. But people would rather waste all of their free time watching TV, scrolling, complaining about their life, instead of doing something about it because it's easier. Because to take responsibility would mean to do hard work. It would mean cutting out distractions and taking the time to improve themselves so that they could actually better their situation. But nobody wants to do that, and so they fail to recognize that they're making a choice to stay the same. Things don't change until you make a change. There is usually always something we can do in our control to improve our situation, and you have to adopt this mindset of what can I do, because the two choices are to be bitter or to be better. Also, just as a side note, I learned all about taking responsibility because of reading books. So I just wanted to show you how all of these points are related to each other. Now, the third key lesson is to set meaningful goals. And so the first step of making a change is knowledge. The second step is taking action. And the third step is that you need a direction to go in. Setting goals for myself and having a clear direction of exactly where I want to go is one of the biggest reasons of why I was able to make a change. Because when you have an end destination in mind, this enables you to then start working towards that and creating the life that you actually want to live in. Whereas when you don't have any goals, you're basically just floating through life, reacting to whatever is happening in your life and letting your external circumstances dictate where you go. It's like being in a car, but you don't know where you're going. You're driving the car, but you're not going anywhere meaningful. And one day you look around you at your life and you realize that you're somewhere that you don't want to be. You're not happy with your situation, and it's because you didn't choose where you wanted to go. You didn't take control over the wheel. I honestly think we underestimate how important goals are, because I think they're the secret to living a happy and fulfilling life. I think so many people lack purpose, and when you lack purpose and you don't have any direction, you just end up feeling lost, feeling unfulfilled, wasting your time away. And when I say finding a purpose, I'm not talking about that you need to find the reason why you are on this earth and you need to become someone like Gandhi. But I'm just talking about what is a goal that inspires you and that you could aim for and would just give your mind some focus. What is something that you wish you could do, or a skill that you would love to develop? Is it going to the gym and getting fitter? Is it to become a better painter? Is it to learn a new language? Is it to overcome social anxiety? Is it to start a new hobby, to build a business, to become more confident, to improve your self-esteem? When you have an important goal in your life, this gives you a reason to wake up every day. It gives you a reason to put down the phone and stop scrolling. It gives you a reason to look after yourself, and it gives your mind some focus, because you have something meaningful in your life that is worth being alive for. Whereas when you don't have anything meaningful in your life to apply your energy to, that's when your energy is going to turn to negative things. I'm not religious, but there is a verse in the Bible that says an idle mind is the devil's workshop. And what this means is that when the mind has no focus or is just left unoccupied with nothing important to apply its energy to, this is when you will turn to negative influences or temptations. I've definitely seen this in myself. When I look back at myself years ago and I had no focus, I had no goal to work on, my mind had too much time to think and it would be negative. I would turn to negative behaviors like going on my phone all day, just sitting on the couch, eating bad food, anything to just try and make me feel a bit better in the moment, because there was nothing meaningful to apply my energy to. And now I've realized how unbelievably important it is to apply your energy to things, for the mind to be engaged in something, whether it's learning, whether it's creativity, whether it's writing, painting, because trying to numb your mind by just passively watching content or TV or scrolling doesn't truly fulfill your mind and your soul, because we have nothing meaningful in our lives to be present for. Here's a few examples of goals I've worked on in the last few years: overcoming my social anxiety, becoming more confident, improving my self-esteem, trying to read more books, becoming more fit and healthy, running a marathon, trying to build a business. These are all things that at some point I never believed that I could do. And when you find your goal, you have purpose, you have a reason to get up in the morning, you have some clear direction of where you're going. And then when you eventually achieve this goal, well, now you're a completely different person from when you started. The you a year ago and the you now is completely different. Now your self-confidence has grown. Look at the way you talk to people, the way you stand. Now your self-esteem has improved, your mind has improved. You have a sense of achievement and satisfaction in your life, and your character has now been developed. You are proud of yourself, you have fulfillment, and you are a better version of yourself because of it. And so just start by setting one realistic goal. Trust me, I had to start very small when I came out of hospital. It was an achievement to just go out and get a coffee. It was an achievement if I ever did even one run during the whole week. But slowly and surely, as you achieve your goal and you keep heading in the direction you want to go in, you keep getting better and better and better. And then years down the line, you look back and you think to yourself, wow, I'm so different now. It all starts with just setting one goal. And so these are the 3 key lessons that I learned on my journey. I actually had so many more I wanted to share, but I didn't want to make this video so long. If you found it helpful, I'd be happy to do a part 2, but thank you for your time and all the best.